So the person with the answers is Strickland, Colin Strickland. He's the man in the middle, and he took the stand. And our guy, NewsNation's Alex Caprariello, was there. So first, thank you. Second, what was your take on him and how he, why he thinks this happened?
Yeah, he came across as very genuinely pained to be up there. These were memories that he did not want to have to relive, but obviously his testimony is arguably probably the most important one that these jury members need to hear. He really outlined his relationship with Kaitlin Armstrong, which he detailed as tumultuous. It was an off-again, on-again relationship. He detailed his past romantic history with Mo Wilson, which really lasted only about a week, a few months before she was actually killed. And he also outlined the secrecy that was involved with that. Eventually, Mo Wilson and Colin Strickland had a very professional relationship. He was helping her with her cycling career. But to your point, Kaitlin Armstrong just really did not see that way as far as the prosecutors are concerned. She was consumed by jealousy in the eyes of the prosecutors, and that's really what they're trying to lay out. But back to your original point, what was my take on him? He really seemed upset being up there when he was recounting his memories from the night that Mo Wilson was killed. He had his eyes closed the entire time. He had his arms crossed ahead of him, and he was just speaking really low, really quietly, as if he was greatly pained in that moment.
Now, legally, this is inoperative, but just in terms of the rights and wrongs of the situation, did it come up that he wasn't responding to Kaitlin when he was out with Mo Wilson, and that he may have had designs on her that Kaitlin was sniffing out, but Wilson didn't know about and didn't know that he wasn't answering and was acting weird with regard to his girlfriend?
Yeah, I mean, Colin really just laid out the fact that he did not believe that Mo really knew much about Kaitlin, and to his belief, Kaitlin didn't know much about Mo. Little did we know that Kaitlin Armstrong had access to all of his passwords, all of his passcodes. She had access to his text messages that the prosecutors are laying out, that she was really following along with it all from the get-go, that she knew way more than she was letting on to. And it really culminated in one night in May when prosecutors say that she was tracking her down, following her activity and her location on a fitness app, and then ultimately prosecutors saying, going into her apartment after she got home from hanging out with Strickland and then killing her in cold blood.
Right, and they found weapons and other signs of trying to get away with it. But I'll tell you what, it's haunting if part of the reason that this happened, you can't excuse anything the defendant did, not legally anyway, is because of what he was keeping from her, and maybe what he was keeping from Wilson about what his feelings were. And I think that's a big part of the intrigue here.
Right.
Alex, thank you very much. All right, let me get the better minds here now. What is his relevance, Prosecutor Dave Aronberg, in terms of making the case?
Chris, whether it's a love triangle or not, he's the key witness. I mean, the gun that was used in the crime was traced to his home. He bought the gun for him and his girlfriend, Kaitlin Strickland. He was so scared of Kaitlin Strickland finding out about this other relationship that he changed Mo Wilson's name in his phone. He described the relationship as tumultuous. So he can talk about who Kaitlin Strickland was or is. He can talk about why she was jealous, why he was scared of her. He can talk about the gun that was found. And look, the reason why Kaitlin found where Mo was because Kaitlin was able to break into Strickland's phone and track her down using some secretive means.
Mark, it probably doesn't matter as a mitigating factor at all legally, but in terms of just the tragedy of this situation, it may be the case that the victim in this didn't know how Strickland was regarding her and what would be making his girlfriend suspicious. She may have really been just duped in all of this.
Well, that's certainly a possibility. I was texting with Aronberg earlier, and he was talking about, he actually texted the words, just because he cheated doesn't make him a killer. And I said, remember that, Aronberg, next time I use that as a defense, because the same people who will argue that kind of a just because you cheat or you're a cad doesn't make you a killer, would argue that here. But if it was the defendant or he was the defendant, they'd be arguing something different. I don't think, I wasn't in the courtroom, but based on what was reported, I don't think he came off well. I think that a lot of the evidence the defense is going to bring up is going to point in his direction, including the DNA and the gun, the ballistic evidence.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.